let's start with the disclaimer first. Hello everyone. Today we will talk about work breakdown structure, requirements, and software architecture. I decided to go with these three topics today almost from scratch because I think that examples that I provided on previous videos were quite unclear and they were not related to the project itself. So I think that we can go through some part of the projects. We can take a look at the work breakdown structure, what we can do with the project. Then based on breakdown structure, we will define our scope. Then we will define our requirements. Then based on the requirements and what is needed to be done, then we will try to plan our software architecture, trying to cover the requirements. Okay, work breakdown structure. I was a bit happy to see that PlantUML supports work breakdown structure and it looks not that complicated. I think that I will use PlantUML to create WBS, in parentheses work breakdown structure, to be able to store it in a code. So if we decide to go with a different way or maybe something will change, then we can update the code itself as well. And I will do some breakdown structure on the background and then I will try to summarize it. So let's start. As you can see, I have created already some start for it, so I will continue to breakdown structure. As you remember from previous videos, we were talking about different stages of the project. I think that I will just create a short mentioning of the initiating the project because we technically have started it, and I will try to create something related to the closing the project, and I will try to focus on the development. Short pause right here. So right now I am thinking about the following steps. So initial state of the project. Usually when you join the project or you join the company, this phase, the initial state of the project, is already done, or some group of people can perform it in the kind of background and then move it to the planning the work phase or something similar. And of course all names for these stages of the project, initial state, planning the work, implementing, control execution, close the project, are named by me, and it is purely improvisation. There is no, can I say, written on stone names. I decided to go with kind of important stages. So we have initial state, then we have planning the work, implementing, control, and close the project. So now let's jump to the planning the work. First of all, we need to define the product, the minimal viable product or MVP, then what we can implement more and what will be kind of ready for a market. Again, it is just an example. So for my case, I assume that under market, I mean that it can be published somewhere on the GitHub and anyone can grab the code, and maybe by adjusting the code and using new libraries, maybe some certificates and etc., use it at home, set up at smart home or maybe something else. Who knows? We need to define the product. Then, based on the product definition, we can address requirements that we can foresee right now. And then based on the requirements, we can plan the architecture of the product. Of course, it might be a bit strange right now, or it might have some lack of the information, but let's just continue. Under implementation, I guess we can foresee right now that it is sensors and server. Yeah, it is a bit strange name for the project, I apologize. But what I want to try to do is to implement firstly a simple application, as I said before, and then expand it into maybe small service running, and then use remote procedure call or maybe some other protocol to transfer data from clients to be able to have kind of centralized server, and then multiple clients which will be communicating through different protocols. And then in the end of the day, just to expand it even more and then get it as a group of services which you can deploy, or we can deploy on the cloud. And then basically it will be possible to connect some web interface, then just get a web address and then use it from mobile phone or any other device to check the data coming from sensors. And if we have nice interface towards client, then it will be much easier for us to implement any code needed for the sensors to provide the data. Well, let's see how it will go. So the absolute minimum idea is, let me think about it and I will write and explain. I think that we can go with the following milestones. In implementation, firstly, we will have local server and static clients. It means that we just start an application. All clients are connected as libraries and they just sending some virtual data. Then we have local server and runtime pluggable clients. That's a goal that I stated in roadmap version 0.0.0.0.0.0.1. We will run an application, and then if we press some button, for example, then all clients will be disconnected and loaded again. So then it means that if we want to add new client, we just put it on the library and click on the button to refresh it. Then based on it, we can expand it into local server and remote clients, so we can still run an application as a server, but all clients will be not pluggable as libraries, but also they can run as separate applications and connect to a server via TCP or UDP sockets, maybe by using remote procedure call technique and some frameworks we will see. And then it can be expanded into containerized server and containerized clients. It means that server is running in a Docker container and separately clients can be run in the Docker container separately. Then I see it as 4 big milestones. There are some rooms for improvements, of course, but it can be expanded. Now let's think about the control execution. Under control execution, or control the execution, I apologize for my language, I think what we can control, we should have some test coverage, not for 100%, not 90%. There is one unpopular opinion about it, but I think we should have test coverage. Usually we determine the test coverage for unit testing. So for example, we have 5 source files, and for each of the source files we have unit tests, for example, written. And if we have one function in each source file, then we have test case for each of these functions. We should think about end-to-end testing, if it is possible, and I guess that in our case it is possible. So we should have test coverage. Test coverage applies to the testing of the source code. Now we should have end-to-end testing. Previously you could see control execution. I got some doubts, shall I change it or shall I keep it? Control the execution or control execution, so it might make you a bit confused, so I just removed it and kept control. Under control, let's think about it in the way that we have some planning, so we have requirements, architecture, product definition. Then we have implementation based on our 4 milestones. And now we're talking about the control. I see control as procedure to check that our implementation is following by preparations that we have done in the planning the work. So I guess that what we can do is to have the test coverage. It is to check our source code, end-to-end testing to see that our logic's still correct, and then continuous integration to perform both of these tests once we updated our code, just to make sure that we are not breaking one of the logics, for example, by our refactoring. And now to close the project, I think we should think about it. So now you can see it a little bit better. I have updated the close the project phase, and you can see here updating the documentation. That's a bit tricky part. From one perspective, under the documentation, I mean the whole package of the documentation. For example, work breakdown structure, architecture, requirements, our documentation in the code itself. You might think that we should add documentation in one of the phases, but that's quite difficult to say what exact type of the documentation we mean. So I just kept here updating the documentation. It means that I just need to update all type of the documentations. It's a bit tricky, it's a bit difficult, but I will do my best. Then cleaning up the code. It is not that important, but in terms of we have some leftovers or we have some to-do that we need to perform, then we need to kind of refine all our to-dos in the code and then either implement it, fix it, or remove it. And under publish it on the GitHub or any other Git platforms. It means if we have some develop branches or maybe some feature branches and etc., merge it into master and then make it as a kind of release and etc. I want to repeat it again. This work breakdown structure I have made as I understand the project, and it is probably simplified, and there is no circular dependencies between planning the work, implementation and control, but I hope that you will bear it in mind. Of course, due to lack of the project manager role, I could make some simple mistakes here, but I guess that that is our approach, right? We just implementing something, and then if we see that we have made a mistake, well, anyone can make a mistake. We just learn it. It will be part of our experience, right? Left, forward, backward. No. So that's part for the work breakdown structure. Now let's go to the initial state of the project, collecting requirements. I think we should close the find possible investors. I have found one. I have looked at my budget and I can say that it is a bottle of whiskey, 2 cups of coffees. I guess it should be enough. Let's take a look at the initial state of the project. Under resources, it is interesting. We do mean human resources. Who is going to write the code? Who is going to check the code? And etc, etc, etc. And the last bullet can be closed because I will be a stakeholder and I will be a human resource allocated for this project. Define the scope is also kind of done. We know what we are going to do. It is some project and we know kind of what we want to do, blah, blah, blah. Collecting requirements. Usually requirements are collected from stakeholders, customer, probably investors, and based on their wishes we are creating kind of requirements. It's kind of collected. I just need to summarize it and formulate it in a good way and also fill in the Jira. So I would say that initial state of the project is kind of done, and now we can continue with planning the work. And first bullet is the requirements, and we go to Jira and requirements. I'm trying to make videos shorter, so I stop here and we continue in the next video. Thank you so much for your time. To see you in the next video. Bye.